Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Barbara Cox Lovesey. We are going to be talking about how you can build your dynamism to gain resilience and mental clarity. So, what do I mean by dynamism? Well, I will tell you that in a second. Let me do a little intro to myself. So my background is award-winning nutritionist and a corporate wellness specialist. But what I love is just helping people feel absolutely fantastic and incorporate health and wellness into their daily regime every day. So it's not something you're on or off, it's just a lifestyle choice all the time. So today about talking about dynamism is about getting all of that into the schedule so you feel resilient. And again, you're not just stopping and starting different sort of wellness programs as well. And it's amazing because I started my career in nutrition, wow, a long time ago. I was Canadian champion skater, and my career skating finished because I didn't fuel myself properly. And so, if you don't fuel yourself for success, then it's very difficult to achieve any of your goals. But when my skating career finished, I moved into the world of nutrition to help inspire, educate, and motivate other professionals to fuel for success and longevity. And hopefully you'll get a little bit more out of this today. So I'm going to jump into dynamism. So let's take a look at distractions, okay? Why you're doing it, the neuroscience of resilience as well, actions that you can take. We'll touch on mindfulness. We'll look at improving yourself. We will look at scheduling, and we'll also look at motivation in this webinar session. So dynamism, distractions. Oh my goodness, this has to be one of the biggest things. It's that continuous partial attention, whether you're at home, you're at work, you're at the airport, you're at the children's sports day, whatever. It's just about everywhere. To be honest, we're rarely fully present and engaged in the task at hand. And that's because of distractions. It's really, really quite apparent. The more sort of gadgets we have in our life, the more distractions there are. So multitasking is when we're doing all these sort of multiple streams of information, bits just coming at us all the same time. And it diminishes our cognitive recognition and our cognitive performance at the task at hand. There was a fantastic study in 2019 done at Stanford University, and they found that heavy multitaskers appeared to have a diminished work memory and sustained attention, which, is obvious, right? Anyone can tell you that. But it's great that they're doing studies on these because, interruptions just keep us from concentrating on the task at hand. And another bit of research that I read at Microsoft is that when we have these constant interruptions, it takes us sometimes up to 23 minutes on average to refocus back at that task at hand. So, it's really disruptive in a bad way. That distractions come in and cause us again not to be engaged. And it's very, very difficult because I would say that we're pretty well addicted to a lot of digital distractions. If I take a look at my phone, it sits there, and if there's any distractions that come up, you hear buzzing, beeping, tings, picks, whatever. It takes you away from the task at hand is the point that I'm really trying to make. And again, there's lots of things that you can do with it. But the problem is, it's not just the digital distractions that diminish that cognitive performance and productivity. The real problem we have is that we're addicted to these productivity draining behaviors. And this is where it gets really quite fascinating. There's a great book that recounts a lot of this, and it's called Irresistible by Adam and Altler. And it's the rise of addictive technology and the business of keeping us hooked. Yeah, what a great strapline, huh? And he wrote, many of us have developed a behavioral addiction to our devices. So it's really interesting because at its core, the crisis of distraction is an internal challenge, really, and the challenge that can only be effectively addressed by giving ourselves and our teams, our employees, our employers, the tools to shift to a new and more productive mindset of resilience, because that's what it is. It comes down to us. And resilience, after all, is our ability to stay centered, to stay present, to stay focused in the midst of the inevitable experience of stress and uncertainty and distraction. So, it's really, really quite interesting. But you got to build that muscle. Yeah, it really is a muscle that we must develop to stay engaged in the midst of information overload, which hopefully this presentation isn't going to be information overload, but it's going to give you some really good food for thought. And my takeaway from that really is learning how to stay centered and present and focused in the midst of stress, uncertainty, and distraction. Because you know what? Those things are here to stay. Okay, let's take a look at the why in dynamism. Why are we resilient? Yeah, why? Most of us can identify with a resilient person. So if you think of a resilient person, have that person in mind. I'm thinking of someone, but then again, I struggle to pin down exactly what makes them resilient. Unless you can do that with a person, that's great. But is it their positivity that makes them they're resilient? Well, it's not that simple. I think it's so many different things, and it's not that alone. We actually have everything else around there as well. And the resilience enables this positive approach to work and outlook as well. So it's like a little bit of a catch-22, which in turn enables us to better problem solving and helps to maintain that motivation when you have a positive outlook. So let's take a look at some key, what are the keys to positivity? And I would say that there's 7 crucial keys to positivity. So when I do big webinars on positivity, I look at number 1, the use of positive self-talk. And that's really apparent when you can speak to someone and know that, it's not just how they're looking and everything. It really is what is coming out of their mouth. The use of positive visualization, and that is fascinating because the more and more we're in this world of self-care and visualization is a really good tool alongside meditation as well. But a lot of those are around using it in a positive way. Surrounding yourself with positive people, it's great because again, there's a lot of peer group learning that you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I think that was Simon Sinek who said that. And there's a lot of research around peer group learning as well. So surrounding yourself with positive people is absolutely imperative. My number 4 is about consuming positive mental food that fuels the success. Dump the junk. Do what science says works. If we want to boost those feel-good hormones, the serotonin in the system, then we need to have foods that trigger that in the brain, not dull it in the brain. So if you watch my Fuel for Success video, then it gives you a lot of brain boosting foods in there as well. Number 5 is we want to practice positive training and development. I'm a real big personal development fan, and I'm a big reader and listener as well. So, I love Audible, which is I listen to books. A new book or two every month comes into my library, and I'm listening and reading that, flooding the brain with these positive, great books. Not novels, they're personal development books. My number 6 is practice positive, healthy habits. Well, easier said than done, right? When we are building that mindset of resilience, sometimes it's just another thing that can knock you down, thinking, oh gosh, I have to build another healthy habit. But you know what? It can be simple as drinking more water, going to bed on time, doing some self-care, going for a walk, turning off, sort of recognizing when to turn off the TV and go to bed. And they can be simple, healthy habits that accumulate, bringing wonderful and health benefits. It really is. And my last one, number 7, is have positive expectations. And I think this is great because a lot of the times when things are running smoothly, sometimes at the back of our brain, it's like, but you're kind of expecting something not to run smoothly. That is a negative expectation. So again, just flicking it over to a wonderful positive expectation. So let's take a look at the N in dynamism and take a look at the neuroscience of resilience itself. Now, what makes one person more resilient to stress than another? I love the science behind all of this because some people do what seemingly takes sort of an extreme stress in their stride, while others kind of succumb to depression or anxiety disorders when faced with stressful situations, traumas, and tragedies. So, could differences actually in the brain structure or functioning of the brain explain this in a different way? And what's fascinating is that these questions have been asked by social sciences for decades now. It's not a new science at all, and there are fairly comprehensive descriptions that are emerging around these kinds of emotional and behavioral characteristics that tend to describe a stress-resilient person. And here's just a few. Here's a few that are coming out of the research, optimism, a strong social support system, an ability to find purpose in life, or a grounding in faith or spirituality, a glass half full kind of person. Now, those don't sound so scientific to me if you ask me, but, it's very, very true. So when we're trying to pinpoint that resilient person, remember, keep them in your brain. They probably have all of those things. So I think it's really, really quite interesting. So, more recently, neuroscience has begun to tackle the question of what resilience really looks like in the brain, okay? And hope to understand that neurobiological mechanism that contributes to resilience in humans. And that will lead to sort of better targeting and more potent interventions when we're not feeling resilient. Again, you can probably gather I love reading studies. My background, science, nutrition, it really is science-based. And this great report that I read that was out in April 2019 showed that reduced connectivity across the brain of resilient individuals compared to individuals with a history of psychological disorders said the most prominent changes were in the amygdala, and that's an area of the brain, this region strongly linked to fear and learning, and suggested a sort of isolating this area more for research for emotional reactions. Now, I find that, again, great because there's this surge of research into neuroscience on resilience, and it's only great for all of us trying to figure it out and be the most resilient that we can actually be. So yeah, it's great. And so it makes me think. So how do we keep the brain really healthy? And there's so many things in our diet and in our lifestyle that causes the brain not to function properly. So I'm very, in my nutrition sciences, I specialized in something called epigenetics. And these are the messages that sit on top of the DNA, just like lifestyle, sleep, stress, resilience, all of those that can actually sway them. So, again, can resilience be brought to the forefront with amazing epigenetic factors? And I believe it can. I have seen the research with that as well. So I'm just going to give you some great tips on how to keep the brain healthy to build that neuroscience area of dynamism and resilience. And number one is a good diet. Of course, being a nutritionist, I'm going to say that, but it is so true. We need the good essential fatty acids. The brain is also at least 70% water, so we need to stay properly hydrated. We need to take a look at the things that deteriorate the brain and don't fuel it properly, and that's lack of vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. So eating a huge variety of food really helps as well. So number one really is good diet. Number two is exercise. It just releases all the right hormones. And I don't mean the once or twice a month that you do something big. I mean habitual exercise, whether it's 10 minutes a day or 1 hour 3 times a week, but it's got to become into a healthy lifestyle. Number three is improving your blood pressure and your blood sugar levels and blood cholesterol levels, because high blood pressure, high cholesterol levels, and blood sugar levels just roller coaster all day due to eating too many sweets and high glycemic foods, means that the brain is under a lot of pressure. Okay, and again, this could be one of those triggers that actually impedes resilience. Number four is avoid tobacco. Again, we know any type of enhancing drug is going to affect the brain in many different ways. Number five is don't abuse alcohol. Limit these. Really take a look and have some resilience around drinking too much alcohol. Limit it, stick within the government guidelines, and don't binge drink. Number six is taking care of your emotions. Deal with the emotions. It is more acceptable these days to deal with more emotions as well. And number seven is building those networks. Our families, our friends, our businesses, our colleagues, all of those networks can really help to support any feelings, thoughts that we're having, and create this wonderful, dynamic resilience. The A in dynamism is around actions. And I love this section because it really is, what actions are you doing to build it yourself? And this can change from person to person. And it can also be prescriptive per person as well. But these actions can also help what I call overwhelm. And sometimes that is an area we try to avoid. So which one of the first symptoms of not coping, whether it be sort of connection, competence, or courage, that is causing some of the problems as well. So taking a look at that action makes a massive difference. So in the action section, I really like to take a look, how do we activate this sort of connection, the competence, and that courage of action? So first of all, we need to feel calm and safe, okay? Because clearly, to solve any type of problem or challenges that we meet in gaining our resilience, we need to be out of that fight or flight response and calm down and calm that amygdala, where the resilience can then take over and come back in. So you can see things are really starting to connect here. And, when we have calm brains, you just manage stress in a much easier way. And it's easier said than done, right? So let's take a look at the compassion area, because actively noticing and recognizing when when you're having a difficult time, or sort of bringing that self-compassion to the moment of uncertainty and suffering, okay? Perhaps coming up with even a mantra around those times. And this is something that I use a lot with my daughter. She's 24 years old and she is autistic. And we use a lot of mantras for her because sometimes day to day it's different. It could be getting on a bus, it could be getting off a bus, you know, and so she needs to have that kind of mantra she can pull out all the time to lower the stress and for that fear factor to go, for her to build resilience, to feel the fear and do it anyway, you know. And they can be, you know, I'm really kind to myself. That's a mantra. I find peace and healing. You know, I'm doing the best I can at this moment in time. You know, there's so many. Find something that resonates with you, and maybe write it down and have it in your pocket or you know, handbag, briefcase, and use it. The final one here is being really clear, and that clarity to face uncertain challenges. And again, you know, when things are not okay and we know that maybe we can't cope with something, it's fascinating how that clarity can stop us from doing something. And it's almost like our brain gets hijacked in a way, doesn't it? But you might want to just visualize a stop sign and say, look, stop, give yourself 5 seconds, and then move through to building an action that is actually going to help as well. You know, we have that connection, and humans are so wired and connected together that when you feel safe in that community and connection, it does make us more resilient for sure. I have a lovely quote here from Helen Keller, you know, and she, again, super inspirational, but she says, all the world is full of suffering. It's only, but it is also full of overcoming. And look at the everything that she had to overcome, being, you know, deaf, dumb, and blind. And so, you know, those impediments, she never let them sort of take over into a phase of suffering at all. So, you know, at times of uncertainty here, we need to actively, and this is where the action comes in, actively tap into our own courage. And courage means you act and face your challenges despite the fear. And one famous proverb, you know, I really love is fear and courage are brothers. Courage exists because fear exists. And courage is about recognizing our fear, yet finding the strength to face it as well. So the next one in dynamism is around mindfulness. And I really, really love mindfulness because it is around, you know, taking care of yourself in many, many different ways. And mindfulness isn't just this new fancy word. I know it's sort of cropped up a lot in the last little while, but actually mindfulness has been around for ages. And when it's around, again, you want to absolutely be creative around using it as much as you can. I lived in Japan for 10 years where mindfulness was really integrated into activities all the time. And they were so thoughtful around the intention of why they were doing things. I just thought it was really, you know, absolutely incredible. And I'd love for you to look into mindfulness a little bit more. Maybe pick up a mindfulness book or a gratitude journal. All of those really, really help with positive actions towards building dynamism as well. So let's take a look at the I, and the I is around improving yourself. And again, I love the self-improvement and taking actions from not only the slides above and the slides coming, but these actions on a constant basis will really be actions to build your resilience naturally. So I kind of want you to choose 3 top actions that maybe you've seen so far. So actions like, are you going to change your diet? Are you going to add exercise to help your resilience? Are you going to do that mindfulness? Are you going to avoid the distractions, internal distractions, external distractions? Are you going to learn to delegate as well? Maybe it's reducing alcohol to improve that self-improvement. What about building a great network of the positive people? You can learn so much from those. Maybe it's quitting smoking or vaping. Maybe it's self-care with your emotions. Anything that improves yourself, write them down on a constant basis. And maybe it's finding a mentor to help you with these and to keep you accountable. There's so many great groups available for accountability. And sometimes we're not accountable to ourselves, but it's easier to be accountable to other people to really get that self-improvement embedded in a self-care activity. So let's take a look at the S in dynamism, and this is around scheduling time for change. Now, because you really don't want the overwhelm to creep in. And how can we find time in our busy schedules already to create this meaningful time with our family and our friends and even ourselves without feeling guilty? Yeah, it's actually quite simple, but it's not easily done. Yes, but we just, it starts with something so simple. We have to stop wasting time. Yeah, I read a quote from Steve Jobs the other day. I was doing a really great presentation and researching for that. And he was talking about, time is the only real commodity we have, and we waste so much of it. I've got a really great statistic here. This is according to Statistica 2021 mobile media usage study, that the average UK adult spends 4.53 hours on their phone every day using non-voice media. That's almost, yeah, I mean, could you imagine? I mean, that is crazy. I mean, I do use my phone a lot because I answer a lot of things on my phone as well. But I actually have a report that comes up on my usage, so I do know where I'm going as well. But, look, I've got a question for you here. How much of this on-screen time that's spent, that you spend, that are using an app or whatever, that is just a waste of time? Because I'm going to give you some really great tips. I often just clear my phone down as much as possible and stop those distractions. Or sometimes, what happens as well is I get so many emails and spammy email stuff. Unsubscribing to things really helps. But here's some great tips. Number 1 is to help your schedule. Use your phone less and to find time in your schedule. I know this sounds crazy, and what I mean by that is you can actually, learn to say no in a lot of cases, and using your phone less by getting rid and turning off of unnecessary apps and notifications. There's nothing worse than that. You want to allocate certain specific time to actually check your phone. So what's great is sometimes I will leave the phone in another room or locked in my drawer if I'm doing deep work. I talked about distractions at the beginning of this. 23 minutes to get your head back in a project after a distraction, that's a lot. So again, I want times where I'm doing absolute deep work and getting things done. So, I sometimes love to go out without my phone, as long as I can actually do that, just because I don't want the distractions of the phone. Yeah. And yes, shock horror, you can do it too. It really is amazing, but it's quite freeing to know that you can actually have some time on your own. Um, so what's great is the first thing you actually notice is when you have some phone-free time is that sometimes your behavior changes. You breathe a little bit more, the shoulders go down, and that makes a really, really massive difference. Massive difference. So since you're going to be staring at your screen less, I want you to give yourself, it should actually free up about an hour of your day. And that hour of your day can be used to do some resilience training, reading, talking to a loved one, maybe on the phone, but, maybe face to face. Simply relaxing with a book and not feeling guilty about it is really great. So my tip number 2 is about stopping to multitask. When we multitask, we know we're actually saving time and being productive, but the actual fact and the research is, as I mentioned before, is it's actually taking longer to do the individual tasks. So do a start to finish, individual tasks, start to finish. So we're not wasting time multitasking, which could mean we are creating more time focusing on deep work tasks and one task at a time. Being more mindful around that task as well. Then we're only focused on one thing. And I agree. You're probably thinking, does that make sense? In some cases it does. And I also, go to monotasking instead of multitasking, and just to see if it actually really, really works for you. So my tip number 3 here is learn to say no. Yeah? I mean, that's one of the easiest ways to stop overwhelm, right? Just imagine if you could say no to more things. How great and liberating would that be? But it is about being choosy. I'm a real yes person. So I always try to find ways, yes, how can I do that? But then delegate and try to get everything done. But you know what? If it's really not something you want to do, then really you need to learn how to say no. And that takes a big muscle. And all of this learning around resilience and dynamism are building new muscles. And it will certainly give you time back in your schedule, 100%. But, I often talk about how to say no without feeling guilty. Yeah, because, it really is around life balance here, okay? We know that time is your biggest commodity. So if you're not using it wisely and you're getting negative feelings around using it wisely, this really isn't good for your work-life balance. It isn't. So you have to get into some type of habit of saying no, but saying yes to more things that are important to you. So you really have to think. Give yourself that thinking time. Sometimes you don't have to say yes or no straight away. You can just say, you know what? Give me a couple of hours. I'll get back to you. And give yourself that time to look at the pros and cons of stuff and schedule it in if you can. So my number 4 tip is to delegate. Look, if you want more time in your schedule, you really need to delegate and get some help. And it can be delegating things at home, the house cleaning, just to give you some more time. It can be delegating your social media, whatever, any solution. If you have the funds to do it, outsource it. And, make sure that you get what you paid for. And many of us, outsource so many different things for other people that we're taking it on for them because they're freeing up their time. So it's time for us to grab back some time in our schedule. And again, how you can do a lot of this with your scheduling is turn the TV off. How often do we just sit there and channel flick? The same with our social media. Turn it off. Look, we all love binge watching, Netflix and new things that come off. But sometimes you just find yourself watching a show for no particular reason, just to kill time. But that can be spent in a more positive way of doing something more meaningful to help build your resilience, which is what this is all about. So again, taking a look, how can we turn off specific things in our diary to create more time, which will be great. Again, there's way more ways than this. The whole point in finding more time in our busy schedule is that we can take more control and live our lives with better intention and create the life that we really want to create and live it the way we want to live it. So if there are issues in this area, it's easy to do it. So now let's take a look at the M in dynamism, and we are at motivation. Why is it sometimes so hard to get the little things done? But what you have to realize is when we get all of those little things done, the accumulation of the little things is what actually leads us to a better life and building that resilience. But still, boom, we press that snooze button in the morning instead of getting out of bed and, doing 10 minutes of Pilates or jumping on a rebounder or making a healthy lunch to take to work. It's very difficult. Why do we choose to go home sometimes after work and watch Netflix instead of going to the gym and working out instead as well? And a lot of this is around motivation. Okay, the simple answer, it really is. We tend to gravitate towards things that are easier options because our brains are hardwired to protect us from pain and discomfort. And so sometimes going to the gym after work, our brain thinks, whoo, that's going to be painful. I'd rather go home and watch Netflix. And it's absolutely true. Can you see how we have to rewire our brains? We are fighting our brain's resistance to discomfort all the way, all the time. This resilience to discomfort manifests itself in so many different ways, okay? We make excuses, we hesitate, we procrastinate, and so on. But once we are actually beyond that, okay, and we move from that initial state of inertia to a new normal. This is what it's all about, creating a new normal that is dynamism. It becomes a new manageable way of being. So I've got some great tips for motivation here. Number one is regularly review your goals and your progress, because it can be goals around wellness, it can be goals around fitness, it can be goals around your diet, it can be goals around travel, career, finances, anything. Review those, because I tell you, the more you review your goals, you will see your progress, and sometimes that's the motivation people need to kick into action. Plus, we want to continue with setting new goals all the time. I'm not talking about the New Year's resolutions where you set a goal and then you forget it 2 months later. I'm talking about week to week, and I just absolutely love it. Now, as for me, just reaching here, I use a workbook that helps set goals week by week in here. So you're looking at them. It can be drinking, the right amount of water. It can be going to the gym. It can be reading a book, anything. But set yourself those little micro goals, because those are the ones that get you into that motivated state to actually get things going. You want to keep the momentum up. This stopping, starting uses so much of our energy. When I work with clients, I need to keep their energy levels up because they're so used to stopping and starting all the time that it just burns up, the energy. It's like a rocket going into space, burns up 80% of its fuel on takeoff, getting into the atmosphere. Then it just cruises around because it's built momentum and it's clicked into a really good orbit. That is how I need you thinking. Okay, I need you're not burning up energy all the time. You have to stop and start a new task. Let's keep it going, keep the momentum going, and keep in that wellness orbit as much as possible. And a lot of that can be with finding mentors, okay? A mentor is someone who's experienced in a habit that you want to change. Find a mentor in those areas and really get some motivation around that. And number 5 is surround yourself with positive people. That is a common thread here because the more research around it, especially in that neuroscience section that I talked about, you do need to research that a little bit more. Number 6 is use exercise as one of your daily goals. And that is important. I try to do, even if it's just simple stretches, it is a type of exercise that helps you breathe properly, gets the oxygen moving to your brain. It can be so many different things, but please fit exercise into your daily regime somehow. My number 7 to stay motivated is find your inspiration. If you can find it through your goals, that's wonderful. Maybe the inspiration is to build a legacy for your family, to build a financial comfort for them. Whatever your inspiration is, please find it because the motivation kicks in when you relook at that goals. And get excited. Yeah? I mean, that positive sort of intention and outlook, it's like, all right, boom, I'm going to do this. I'm really excited. And sometimes just that movement really changes the way that you look at stuff and kicks that motivation in straight away. I also want people to commit publicly. This is where accountability is absolutely fantastic. Because I tell you what, if I choose a goal, I don't know, it could be anything. Maybe I'm going to drink 1.5 liters of water a day all week just to see a difference. And I'm going to, tell my friend, hey, can you keep me accountable to that? I'm going to commit it and I'm going to do it. And please, can you text me every day to make sure I've done it? That kind of thing. It's great because I would feel like I'm letting my friend down who I've committed publicly to. And that makes me feel bad. And actually, sometimes that's the motivation to keep going. Whatever works for you. My number 10 is squash any negative thoughts. Replace them with positive ones. It really is important to feel absolutely fantastic. And it's so easy to get into a negative spiral. So squash it straight away as quickly as possible, however you can, using these other steps before as well. So let's do a fantastic little recap here on dynamism to gain this resilience and mental clarity. Because, dynamism means this great energy, this drive, this force or power, the activist strength of the body, the pizzazz. That's what you want every day when you wake up. And if you put these things in place, it'll be fantastic. We need to avoid our distractions as much as possible. So go through, the tick list, re-listen to this. You could actually have this as one of your goals, that you're going to do the D one week, the Y another week, the N the week after that. You've got 8, 9 weeks here of implementation, how to create a new way to add dynamism into your schedule. You don't have to do it all at once. Just a little bit each day, drip feed it in. Know your why. You really do need to. We understand why we need to be resilient, but you need to work on your why. Why do you want to be resilient for your life, and what type of life are you going to build for your future? We know there's loads of science around it, and just remind yourself, it's not a wishy-washy idea anymore about building resilience. This is soundly scientifically proven that there are actions that can really help. So number 4 is around mindfulness. I want you to be mindful around what you eat, what you say, what you do, and maybe even keeping a diary around mindfulness as well. And when those negative thoughts creep in, write them down in your little mindfulness journal. I is about improving yourself and having a structure around self-improvement. So many different ways we talked about that you can do that. But it's about scheduling those in. So making sure you schedule in your self-improvement. That can be a 1-hour self-care that you do every week, down to going to the gym, having a massage if you want to see a sports physiotherapist maybe, anything. Make sure it's in the schedule. And finally, It's about staying motivated. Remember, we want to get into that wellness orbit that just keeps that motivation going round and round, and then you can keep adding new different things in there. So I want to thank you so much. If you're interested in picking up one of the 3-month diaries, then go to revampyourwellness.com. They're $9.99. Whole 3-month series. You'll be able to do a daily habit builder as well as a mindfulness gratitude journal that's in there, and meal planning ideas as well. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and it's been fantastic. This is going to be recorded. You're going to be able to watch it back as well. And I just want to thank you so much for joining me and taking time out of your schedule to do that. So thank you so much. Barbara Cox, stay in touch, stay well, stay resilient, and we'll be in touch on the other side. Take care. Bye, everyone.